Can you explain how you became the EMT delivering this and how Vince decided that tonight was the night?
Well, Vince, for whatever reason's like, it's got to end. Vince came back from the Magic Man. He went and found a rubber hand. He goes, and this is it. And you're going to deliver it. So, it's like, whoa, am I being punished for this?
It's the final Raw of February 2000. Welcome to Tales from the Attitude Era.
The final Raw of February. that sounded like a good wrestling
February
promo,
Raw.
just making something exciting out of like a big deal. The final.
There's only one
No
more Raw
more in February 2000. Ever will there be a Raw. Okay.
Oh. We're back at the Garden 1 month after the Royal Rumble, which sold out. And then this show, according to JR during the episode, sold out within 30 minutes, 1 month later. So you got to think there's just, one thing I remember going to Garden shows is midway through the show, they would announce the next Garden show and you could buy tickets that night. And I have very vivid memories of like before SummerSlam, I believe 98, the Highway to Hell SummerSlam with Steve Austin Undertaker. Me and my friend purposely got very cheap tickets to the house show right before it, knowing they would announce the SummerSlam. And when they did, we ran to the box office.
Pretty good.
To get tickets. And to be clear, we were, poor teenagers. So we got the best nosebleeds.
Yeah.
But still,
well,
I have great memories.
We used to do the same thing back before you were born, even probably, but back when really no one was going in the late 70s. I was in high school and 80s at the Cobo Arena in Detroit, but they would do the same thing, and we'd go and we'd get great seats, even like so back in the day when things were wonderful, and you get inexpensive seats, and cheap, shitty high school students could fucking get 3 rows off the ring. By doing exactly that. So, and they used to have shows there like, God, seemingly like once every 2 months, and it was crazy. But this is just a testament to how hot it was. Cause like I said before, they'd always want to keep the touring in the Northeast cause it's cheaper. So as much as they could like sell out, they would keep it there. And this isn't, like huge. So 1 month later and boom. And then there was the restaurant down in Times Square, just things were exploding. It was preposterous.
Yeah, I'm honestly very surprised at how much concentration is in the Northeast for this. To your point, like I totally get it now with the production, like why make the trucks drive all across the country if you don't have to.
Oh, it's huge. Yeah. Drive to Hartford, drive to Providence, drive to New York, drive to, it's like Baltimore, Philadelphia. It's all right there. It's crazy.
Yeah. Hartford to New York, to the city is like 2 hours. It's nothing.
Yeah.
So easy peasy. And the crowd was super hot. And this was a great follow-up to the pay-per-view. There was a lot that happened on the pay-per-view that we talked about last week with the great Will Sasso. Right. You could check that out. And I like that, you have plenty of time till WrestleMania, I believe 6 weeks till the show. So you don't have to be in a rush to start the new storylines, but you could already see the seeds being planted.
You make it sound so calm. I was just remembering watching this, like freaking out where it's like, that pay-per-view is huge. It's a Sunday and you're like, the goddamn Raw is the next night, and you're going to Raw and you're figuring stuff out. And that's when Vince says like, Mae Young's got to end. And you're just so scrambling. Sometimes by the time it's Tuesday at midnight, you're just like, what's happening? Like someone couldn't even ask you a question. Like, so what's up for next week? You're just like, I'm brain dead. It was so intense. I just was reminded by watching that, like you'd have this big, great, successful pay-per-view and it'd be like, okay, tomorrow, what are we going to do? It's just like,
So that's interesting. Yeah. Cause typically with Raw, you have, like 5 days to come up with it, right? Like SmackDown is done, and then you can start thinking about it. But with the pay-per-view, that's kind of makes Raw a little crazy because you're spending those now 4 days working on the pay-per-view, right? Like finalizing what's happening on the pay-per-view, and all that happens until showtime. And then, like, did you have any idea before the pay-per-view of anything that would happen on Raw, or you don't even think
well,
about it?
as usual, you have ideas, and again, it's the typical answer. You have a lot of ideas. You don't know which is going to go into motion. You got to react to what happened live, and then see what Vince wants and what have you. So you're juggling. So to say this is going to happen and we're going to go in this direction. Sometimes for the big stuff, but really in this particular period, because obviously sometimes you're going to be working towards this kind of main event. Pretty much, but other than that, things are pretty tenuous, especially this particular one. I remember we got, just little things like, okay, we want to give the Hardy Boys, want to give them a good reward for, they lost, but you want to keep them hot, so it's pretty fundamental booking, I would say, for this one, but for the most part, no.
Would the benefit be, since there's so little time, that Vince isn't micromanaging as much? Like he's just like, fine, that's great. Like akin to your first week there.
Yeah, that's often the case, which you kind of like. But at the same time, he's not in the storyline. And then even though there's some XFL stuff that takes some of his focus away, but not really. So it's good and it's bad at all times. The mercurial Vince McMahon, you could say, like, in any certain incidents, like, oh, this is great, he's not focused, whatever. But then it might be like, he's not focused and it's the 11th hour and he's pissed. What the hell is this? So you're like, oh, so it's everything's on edge all the time in terms of that. You can't ever count on that. And as soon as someone were to say something like that, this is going to be pretty good because he's probably focused. Yeah, it won't be. So keep your head on the swivel is always. And it's what's the phrase that sometimes you hear in sports? It's like, you got to just be comfortable being uncomfortable, and just be ready to, okay, it's going to be something else. All right. You know what I mean? And once you get into that mode, like, everything's kind of fun,
So interestingly, Raw does not start with a recap or anything. It starts just with the intro, and Triple H comes out. And of course, JR and Lawler inform you, the viewer, that Triple H did in fact win and retired Mick Foley last night, which is big news. And then Triple H and Stephanie have the microphone and huge asshole chants. Triple H says he should be celebrating, but he's recovering from a Hell in a Cell and getting beat up last month in this very arena at the amazing street fight. And he says he should be celebrating, but ultimately all he can say is he has respect for Mick Foley. Stephanie is shocked. What? What are you doing? You can't respect him. Well, we get a "We Want Foley" chant. Foley is more over than ever on the show now that he's retired. And Triple H mouths to Stephanie as she's like, "What are you doing?" He goes, "It's a guy thing." And he says he had the guys in production put a very special video package together for Mick. And it's all his best moments in WWE. So we have somber music. It's like a eulogy almost. And it's like a full recap of his career. And like I've been saying in the last few weeks, WWE did such a great job all throughout Mick Foley's career of getting across his lore. Like, I've seen this Dude Love home video like 50 times already, which is great. I'm not complaining about it. And halfway through the montage, there's a record scratch and the DX music hits. And then it's all embarrassing footage of Mick Foley getting pedigreed, getting thrown through things, scratching his butt, like all different cutaways. And Triple H and Stephanie are having the time of their life in the ring. This is the funniest thing they've ever seen.
And exactly why there wasn't a recap, because we had this. And then again, to just shout out, this is where this era and the WWF at the time spared no expense. And the studio back in Stamford, you could just say like, hey, make this package, and you'd lean on them. All their graphics packages, everything was always like so great and so top notch. So for me, and I think Gewurz at the time would concur, you'd just, hey, anything that we can like lean on them to be like, hey, here's an idea. Make a package, but make it like a swerve, and then, may embarrass him. And all you did was just give him those parameters, and then it would just arrive. And I can't even remember. Sometimes this was just like the idea was coming up so late. It wasn't like all in the week. It could just be like, because they were all hands on deck all the time, and just be like, oh, we need this kind of package. And then you just sit, and it would come into the truck, and you'd sometimes see it live, or you see it a little bit before. And you always were just like, that was great. And Vince, I think, he didn't really want to, thank God, edit and tweak and be like, pull that up here or do that. He wouldn't do any of that. So that was always good. So it was just like, that's great. And so it was just such a great thing to lean on. And really, when you look at it, again, it was like, big successful opening segment, video package that we ordered, and microphones, and you know what I mean? Not a lot of moving parts, really, even though it seems like it is, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, and these video packages are always a highlight of the show. Like there was one later on in the show that was a more sincere package about Foley that's just as great. Yeah. Like it's very, very good. They were on top of their shit here. Like I remember, I don't know if this was, I think it's coming up later on in the year. They started doing these My Sacrifice videos, like with Creed's My Sacrifice, and it would just be like a WWE promo reel. And I hated Creed with a passion, but I loved those videos,
and a lot of times you got I'm the same way. And we in particular, we're both like metalheads or whatever, but at a certain point you got to be like, this is over and this is working. And you got to put yourself in the perspective of like, hey, I'm managing this, I'm a rock promoter, Creed. And then like, how's the ticket sales? You know what I mean? You got to like, yeah, okay. If I even ran a label, I don't like Creed, so don't sign them. No, fucking sign them, of course. Like not my cup of tea, whatever. But
after the video package, they're laughing, and Triple H says, Mick, the World Wrestling Federation will not be the same without you. It'll be a million times better.
All cheap, all fucking great. Yeah.
70 says, instead of being a fat, smelly, disgusting loser, you could be a fat, smelly, disgusting, retired loser. Boo. Big heat. No chance in hell. Theme song hits. Suddenly their smiles turn to concern. Mm-hmm. Shane and the Big Show come out, which, by the way, is a great looking pair. Like Shane looks like the perfect manager for Big Show. I always like the two of them together. Lawler says he could smell a power struggle happening. And Shane says he isn't going to sit idly by while Daddy's little princess takes over the family business. You may have drove Vince out of the business into a whole new business, kind of tipping the hat to XFL, but Shane is here and he's looking to align himself with a champion. He's not talking about Triple H, who marches to the beat of his own drum. He's certainly not talking about The Rock, that prima donna. When he mentions The Rock, a huge cheer from the crowd. He then hypes up the future WWF champion, The Big Show.
Yeah.
And then there's like this weird little awkward silence. Like he finishes mid-sentence. I imagine Rock's music had to interrupt him here, and the music guy missed his cue because they're just like holding each other's like holding their dicks, like looking at each other, like what? And then the Rock's music hits.
And and for the most part, it's like 98% timing perfect of music. And so it just goes to show you like, oop, this little thing, which always,
I was thinking the same thing.
It's always like, you never even remember it. And you only remember it's like being an offensive lineman. You only remember the mistakes. Whoa. Like when it's works smooth, it's fine. That always cracked me up. I always thought of like, you couldn't really do it, but I'd think in my mind sometimes like, it wasn't worth it. We should do a thing where, if you think of like logically, like that Triple H and Stephanie were like, oh my God, Shane's music, he's here. Like the conceit would be like, oh, he snuck in the arena and went and got the music guy and I need you to play my music. You know what I mean? It's always like, I always thought of like what was happening backstage, even when run-ins like sometimes are like, timed out. And then it's like, you always think of like someone's in the shower. Hey, they're attacking him in the ring. What? I got to get my stuff. And like, why were you late? And like, how come they didn't see Shane backstage? And how come the music guy has his music and all that kind of stuff? Just like, you know what? Forget it. Just, it doesn't matter.
I imagine, like when they came out, Triple H and Stephanie, that's when Shane ran to the music guy. I was like, hey,
but he was there.
Play my music.
His car was hidden.
Yeah.
He was, just no one knew. Like,
and then when Shane and Big Show came out, that's when The Rock went to the music guy. Like now, get ready to hit my music. But like, wait, make him sweat.
Yeah, I always think of something, should have had a character of some music guy who's always like nervous, like, you hit my music now. All right. Why did you like, how come he never had any repercussions? Why come Triple H didn't come back and like, why the hell did you play Shane's music? It's like,
I'm surprised there was never a storyline with the music guy.
That's what I'm saying. We thought of it, but it's just like, what a fucking ass opening can of worms that would have been. Just like, forget it,
So The Rock comes out, calls Stephanie the biggest tramp in New York City, which gets a huge pop, calls all four in the ring the biggest group of assholes The Rock has ever seen, and an even bigger pop. Needless to say, Rock is super over in New York City. No shock. Rock says he's not going to complain about losing because he's a babyface. Babyfaces don't complain about losing. He says he guarantees he's going to WrestleMania and win the WWF title. Ooh. Everyone is like, oh, how's he going to do that? I believe Jim Ross even asked that on commentary. Triple H says this is an A and B conversation and The Rock needs to see his way out. Big heat. This convo is between champion and challenger, not also rans and has-beens. I love that line. A big asshole chant for Triple H. The crowd doesn't want to hear this. Triple H quips the fans shouldn't talk to The Rock that way. He says The Rock is going to the bottom of the ladder. And tonight, Triple H has an idea, and he mocks The Rock mocking Triple H, saying, in this very ring, you start at the bottom of the barrel, going one-on-one with New York's own Brooklyn Brawler. Big pop for me in my my computer chair watching this, and he ends the promo in great heel. If you smell what the game is playing, love one of the best Triple H promos that I've seen in a long time. He was so over. Shane says the chance of you going to WrestleMania, there's no chance in hell.
Catchphrase mania. Steve Lombardi, I believe. Time. Rock's first match in WWF ever.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. I recall him mentioning that. Yeah. Do you have any fun Steve Lombardi stories?
Just, gosh, I saw him in an airport with like 4 or 5 years ago. And he was funny. He said, I can still bench 500 pounds. Well, it's none of those guys back there. Okay. He still was putting himself over in his bench press, but, now he just, just a behind the scenes guy, always there, just always.
He would produce all the interviews, right? Like that was his deal.
He was just, like everything, revolving door would do, jack of all trades, behind the scenes. But he was always busy doing a lot of stuff. Not on, sometimes Sergeant Slaughter. What is he doing? I don't know. But he's a cool guy. I liked him. Actually from Brooklyn, but then resides in Michigan. Lived in Livonia in the west side of Michigan. I know that. That's all I know. But I always liked him. Liked him a lot.
APA playing Booker backstage. Hardys asked what they tried to pull last night. As you recall, they attacked the Hardys after the Hardys attacked Terry, which is a face move apparently. But they challenged the APA to a match. APA's ready to fight right there. And they say, no, we don't brawl. We wrestle in the ring. APA brushed them off. So the Hardys knock over their poker table. Now it's personal.
And a smart little wrinkle there just because it'd be like, well, the APA is going to beat anyone up, but they could possibly lose in the ring. But that's not really their point moving forward. So they could still be over and be like, well, they're almost getting to this point like, we kind of don't give a shit about being pinned. We like to beat people up, so it's kind of a good little piece of business there.
I liked it. We have APA versus the Hardys. Very fun start to the match. Hardys come out first, then APA come out. They're at the end of the ramp right by the ring, and Matt Hardy tries a suicide dive onto the both of them, and the both of them catch Matt Hardy. And then Jeff Hardy does his own suicide dive onto Matt Hardy, who is being cradled by the Acolytes, and then knocks everyone over. Very cool move to start the match, and a good way for the smaller faces to show that they could hold their own against, like, the Acolytes look like they're the Hardys' dads, basically. they look like twice as big as them. So it looks like an unfair spot. And
that's why they had to use those high risk maneuvers, even the playing field.
Exactly. Yeah. No, that's why it's great psychology. Acolytes take most of the match. During the match, Lawler notes that Bradshaw was on CNBC talking stocks this morning. JR says stocks is a hobby of his. This is his job. Beating people up is his job. And Lawler quips that he trades stocks for beer money. I always thought this was a fun dichotomy for Bradshaw before he turned into his like $1 million man character, to be the stock guy and also like this, salt of the earth beer drinker. Did you ever get any stock tips from Bradshaw?
No, I didn't. But no.
but drinking tips you did.
Yeah,
you definitely did. So there was a blind tag. So it's a back and forth. It wasn't a back and forth match. Acolytes dominated the match. And at one point there was a blind tag while APA was working on Jeff. So Matt snuck in the ring and gave Bradshaw a twist of fate and a quick tight roll up pin where Bradshaw kicked out at like 3.25. He just missed the kick out. Typically I find that that's like a very selfish move for someone losing to do, because you kind of taint the victory a little bit. But in this instance, I thought this was very smart just because of how they were dominating the match, and the Hardys kind of just snuck in and stole one. So I like that. They got outsmarted.
And it is that old thing that I like that it gets brought up occasionally. It's like, well, it's not about baiting people up. It's about securing the pin. You know what I mean? And then you could see, like I said before, just the Acolytes, like, well, they're always going to be a force, and they're always going to be a force to reckon with, but maybe, they could lose.
Yeah, no, I mean, and like you said, the Hardys are way more over right now. So, and they needed the win. Like this match was for me being disappointed that the Hardys lost the number one contenders match, 14-year-old me or whatever, or 16-year-old me. Like, wait, how come the Hardys lost? So the next day you give them a little more to keep the Hardys fans happy.
Yes.
I like it. And also the Hardys are heading towards this tag match. Are any of the WrestleMania matches, is there a whiteboard with WrestleMania matches? Do you have any of the card in your head?
Oh, you can put it, point? Sure. That's on a whiteboard, but there's an eraser. So what's the
point? Fair. Backstage, Angle was talking to an MSG security guard about which of his two belts, the Intercontinental title or the European title, weighed more. He mentioned something about how the Intercontinental title weighs a few pounds more because there's more countries being represented by the Intercontinental title than the European title, and the security guard just is like wants to be shot. like I'm just being nice. After the break, Kurt Angle comes out, has the mic. He says, unlike Darryl Strawberry, the only thing Angle is addicted to is winning championships. I think this is shortly after Darryl Strawberry admitted he had a crack addiction, right? I believe
it was always in the ether, so to speak, in the air, his problem. So it was well-documented substance abuse problems.
Ross says that's a low blow. Kurt Angle has an open challenge for the IC title, and the announcers are acting like he assumes that Jericho would answer the challenge, but it is in fact Rikishi who answers the challenge. Angle is shocked, and Rikishi gets a huge pop. Again, because of the size difference, fans are hoping maybe we'll see a title change. Listen to the sentence I wrote here. Angle sells Rikishi's butt huge. But he does. Rikishi gives Angle the stink face. Angle runs out of the ring, takes a count out loss, and says, by the way, so far there has not been one non-clean finish. I'm very happy about this. He said the fans come out to see a wrestling match, not to see Rikishi's ass in his face.
There you go. So you're thrilled being a clean finish smart mark Something you kind of rarely see is a count out disqualification, but you count that as a clean finish because it's a decision by a referee. It's not a right. Am I right?
Yeah, I think that's a clean. Absolutely.
Now, is there?
I mean, I guess it's not
at the Clean Finish Smart Mark Club. Is there any? Do other Clean Finish Smart Marks feel that way?
Well, I feel a count out is up for interpretation. Here's why: because I feel if the match was 3 minutes, as it was, a count out is a valid finish because you're telling a story. If it's a 25-minute match and then there's a count out, that's not that's a cop out.
Ooh, it's not. I'm wondering if there's a kind of a division between Clean Finish Smart Marks about this.
Yeah, I guess we'd have to go to the the board of directors,
the clubhouse.
Yeah, see what they say. But anyway, Jericho interrupts, says Rikishi might have a giant ass, but Kurt Angle is a giant ass.
Yay.
And we all want to see Rikishi do it again. So he attacks Angle, rolls him into the ring, and Rikishi gives Angle a bonsai drop. Then the Radicals come out and attack everyone, including Jericho and China. And Lawler noted that there was a history with Saturn and Jericho, which leads to something a little later. And I want to mention, I think this is a great, like, you're basically transitioning the Radicals here from feuding with Too Cool to what will eventually be a triple threat feud with Benoit, Jericho, and Angle. And this is a very natural, seamless transition into that feud.
Nice.
So kudos. This is the type of feud transition that I live for.
Feud transition.
I live for this shit. Because I like I forget who it was. It was like Val Venus or something. They literally just bumped into each other in the hallway after the Monday after a pay-per-view, and then that was the beginning of the feud. I was like, okay, come on, that's a little lazy, but this is great.
Yes. Although, what might I, to be devil's advocate, is it light years beyond just running out for no reason as opposed to bumping in? You know, I mean, done correctly.
Well,
I think I hear you, and I think like everything done correctly, just a hard look and a bump in and something can escalate. If the charisma is there, if the chemistry's there, that's all you need, you know? So, but, you know,
no, this was good.
You know, sometimes I think even in these retrospect podcasts or whatever, sometimes it's like, well, it's all the pieces and it's the manipulation. It is, but it's like, you know, a lot of times it's just the chemistry and the things that work are just simple, like, you know. And it also made sense for the Radicals keeping it alive of like, we've arrived, we're a faction, we've got to do whatever it takes to, you know, get over. It makes sense for them to just do anything at a certain point, you know, while they're still new, you know what I mean? So that makes sense. So
absolutely. So the Radicals are cleared out of the ring, and then Too Cool are about to dance. China and Jericho are like, all right, well, I guess our time is done. We're going to go. But no, Brian Christopher will not allow them to leave. Grandmaster Sexay pulls out some shades out of his jacket pocket, and Scotty Too Hotty also has shades. And as soon as the shades are placed on China and Jericho's faces, they're transformed. They go from Clark Kent to dancing Superman and Superwoman.
And this is just a case where like these fucking moments in this dancing and the crowds just rule. And so, you know, really on paper, you could have looked at all this and kind of said it the way you said it. It could have been a fucking mess, just a fucking mess. Then, you know, they come down and then they leave and then they're going to dance and they're out. And, you know, you could have just seen like, oh, this is just garbage. What's happening? The timing could have been, but everyone was so onto it. And the dancing was so huge with the crowd that it just, everything, you just made everything work, you know, because of just how everyone was so into doing a good job. And also the crowd were so hot for this dancing, you know, because sometimes when you retell it and you look at it on paper, it'd be like this boy. And even having worries back then to be like, ooh, this could be a mess, but it's not. It's just fucking over. Like it's huge.
I believe it was 2 weeks ago or a few weeks ago on the show that I said, I'm over the Too Cool dancing in this recap. Like, it's getting a little tiresome. I'm back into it this week. like I really liked how they did it. Like, this was very, very fun. It wasn't just like, let's stretch and dance. Like this there was like a little more meaning
Sure.
to it, and including China and Jericho made it very fun.
And sometimes it's just you're relying on the live show energy and the live shows guiding you, because while I would agree, and sometimes you're looking at like, God, this is week 6 of this dancing, but then when you're there and all of a sudden you're in a new city and the fucking whole place from the cheap rafters goes so bonkers, you're just like, keep the dancing, you know. And that's a thing that wrestling is good.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're always being like, oh, we don't want to go, you know. Sometimes you'll be like, let's end it 1 week early as opposed to 1 week late, which is like, ugh. But you know, it dictates, you know, the length is the pop. The pop dictates the length. That's a quote from me.
Oh, I like it. Backstage, Mitchell Cole tries to interview Jericho, but the Radicals interrupt, and Saturn challenges Jericho to a match. So Lawler wasn't just mentioning the history between Jericho and Saturn for nothing. It was all to set up this match later in the show.
I always loved how WWF was just a little coy and cryptic about things, you know, like, oh, you know, just they've had history. They don't spell it out, but it's good to kind of like, you know, not just pretend like, oh, no one knows each other, but it's pretty good. I like how they do it.
I agree. I liked it because it's like, yeah, as a viewer, you know the histories in WCW and ECW, and you know, if you know it, you know it, and if you don't, it's fine.
Yeah. And then the other, like, not what, you know, the half smart marks are asking the smart marks, what history? And then you're not mentioning too much where people are going to tune in. It's just right.
Edge and Christian come out. The announcers remind us they're the #1 contenders for the tag team titles. Terry comes out shortly after them with a giant duffel bag. She's on commentary. Lawler's flirting with her the whole time. Then we have Al Snow come out and says, nobody knows you need a good entrance more than me. It's all about personality. So hit it, boys. And then there's a new, like, slow R&B song. The lyrics are like, ooh, ah, he's got it. Ooh, ah, he's got it. And it's just like a montage of Steve Blackman being deadly.
Yeah.
And he comes out and he's just like, what the fuck is this? He's no selling this, not into it. On announcing, Terry is asked why she left the Hardys, and she was upset because they only visited her 2 days a week. They could have visited her more, which is, I guess, it shows that she is a heel. There's a "Let's go head cheese" chant, which I'm kind of like, wow, they're still doing this head cheese thing. Like, I don't remember it running this long.
Yeah.
But like it's over. Like you said, the pop dictates the length. Late in the match, Terry gets up and reveals her bag had a giant block of cheese, like a Wisconsin cheese head thing. She places it on her head. Blackman is completely distracted by this, allowing Edge and Christian to capitalize and get the pin, kind of teasing that Terry might be with Edge and Christian now.
Good piece of business. Blackman's deadly, but he can be distracted by a block of cheese.
By a block of cheese. Then we have a main event in any arena. The Rock versus the Brooklyn Brawler.
Yeah.
Love the Brawler's music. Brawler comes out second. Rock attacks him on the outside. Doesn't even let him get in the ring. Rock throws Brawler into the ring and rolls it himself, giving Brawler enough time to stand up and lay the kicks into the Rock, almost mounting a comeback until literally walking right into a rock bottom. 1, 2, 3. This is exactly what it should have been. It should have not been any longer than this because, well, you know, they joke that the Rock is starting at the bottom of the ladder. He's at the top of the ladder, so this should be like a black belt going after a white belt.
Sure.
Easy. You
let him get a couple of kicks in too, you know.
Yeah. No, this was great. And The Rock grabs the mic after. He says he doesn't feel like leaving yet. He challenges Triple H for a match. Doesn't have to be for the world title. Doesn't have to be non-title. He just wants to fight. Triple H comes out. He's about to accept when Shane goes, whoa. Next thing you know, you're gonna pin Triple H and demand a title shot. I'm not into it. There's only one #1 contender, and it's the Big Show. They all huddle. And then Steph grabs the mic and says, Rock has one last chance. He has to face Big Show and Triple H. And if he pins one of them, he'll get in the match. Shane is acting like he's not into this. And The Rock grabs the mic. He says, "You're saying I only have one last chance?" Triple H starts to respond, "Yeah, one last. It doesn't matter if I have one last chance," which is, wow, great timing. Completely forgot about this shtick, and he really snuck it in here. It's good that he didn't do it for a few weeks, so you almost forgot about it.
Yeah, and also it's a moment that, because of the complication of the moment of what they're telling him, it's almost like a reasonable question, you know, because they're coming out with this, like, you got to do this and do, like, you got to do, so yeah, it was good. Like, and you almost feel like, as an audience member, like, oh, I didn't see it coming. Oh, I'm so thrilled. You know, they go crazy.
Yeah. No, I popped big for that. Then we have Jericho versus Saturn. Good work rate. Malenko is out there as well. Jericho goes for a lion salt. Malenko drops the middle rope, and Malenko does everything with such flair and such even just pulling the rope down, he had to like put his whole body into it. He's great.
I know.
Jericho falls out of the ring trying to do the lion salt. It looked awesome. Chyna went for the save, but Malenko clotheslines her. This is the beginning of a, believe it or not, Malenko and Chyna mini feud that transitions into a Malenko and Guerrero. Chyna and Guerrero feud.
Well, and part of the reason too is like Malenko can work with anyone and make them look, you know, God. But you're right. He, even seeing him like sometimes just get up, like after like everything, you know, if he takes a bump, the way he gets up where he is, you're just like, oh, it's always just picture perfect, oddly balanced, square. Like everything is like, it's just like, like someone would say, watch that guy, you know? It's incredible.
Yeah, exactly. So they do this thing where the Radicals distract the ref once, and then like Saturn attacks Chyna. Then the Radicals try to distract the ref again, but this time Chyna is up and she rolls in the ring and low blows Saturn, giving Jericho the momentum to do the lion salt and get the victory. So Jericho has momentum going into his title shot. Saturn, of course, can eat the pin. He's lower on the total pole. Good piece of business.
But a finish with many smudges and many scuff marks on it. Wouldn't you agree?
This is not a clean finish, no, but advances the storyline, so it's all right.
So is there a difference? Like now there's a clean finish, but then there's finishes like this one that have smudge marks and marks on it. And then there's other finishes that are just a pile of rubble. Do you discern that?
Yeah, I guess it's like, is this this is at the start of the feud, you know, so it's a little different than like the worst non-clean finish is when it's the climax of the feud and you're 20 minutes in, and then there's just like nobody wants to take the clean loss, so you just do a shitty run it. Like I hate that. Okay. That's cheap. Right. Here it serves a purpose. Like I would discern this is not a clean finish. I would never call this a clean finish, but this is the beginning of the feud. So I understand why you're doing it.
So you should get a rating system. You should have clean.
Yeah.
Murk, smudged finish. Yeah. Dirty.
Like a Kinsey scale, but for finishes.
Yeah. And maybe there'll even be side factions from the clean finish smart mark community. I'm just saying. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, exactly. That'd be huge debates. Then, so shocking moment backstage. DX is arguing. It's all of DX. Billy Gunn is in a sling. We learned last week he was wrestling with a torn
rotator cuff.
Something in his was it his rotator cuff? Thank you. Yes. And so he's in a sling. He can't wrestle. Road Dogg is telling him that DX is getting another shot at the titles that they lost last night. But since Gunn is injured, it's going to be Dogg and X-Pac. Gunn is very pissed off about this, and Triple H tells him to calm down. And Gunn says, even with one arm, he's twice the wrestler that Triple H is with two. And Triple H is like, oh yeah, and then he beats up Billy Gunn. I don't remember this at all. All of DX attacks Billy Gunn and shove him into the locker room bathroom.
Yep.
Last we see him this week. I'm curious where this.
Well, goes. Yeah, and like I said, there was a lot of talk about like giving him a push, you know, peeling him off. And I told you I had that idea. I told Vince about like, he should come out like pissed off, and had to worry about like, don't want to make it too much like Steve Austin, but kind of like being like a lone guy who's pissed off and be like, I'm not Mr. Ass. I'm not this. I'm not that. I've had, you know what I mean? I always thought it was good to have someone who's like, I've had all these gimmicks. I don't fucking want them anymore. I'm, this fucking guy. And everyone like respected him and was like, holy shit, this guy's fucking work is crazy. And then he had the rotator cuff. So that was like, okay, it's better, he's got to go away. So it's better to like, not necessarily give him a baby face turn. He gets beat up. So when he comes back, he can be on fire and pissed off about, shit and what have you. And then I was gone by the time he came back. So I don't know exactly how. But,
so he's gone for a long time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. He had surgery. So.
Oh, I see. So, it's like a year, basically.
Yeah, I guess. So this whole thing was based on his, like I said, he wrestled that knowing he needed surgery. He wrestled that match. And then it was like, oh, this was the way to give him a reason to be off.
Write him off. I see. So now DX is a trio temporarily. It will be interesting to see how this progresses. We get a hardcore title match. Oh, here's the big moment. Boy. This is exciting. Hardcore title match, Mark Henry versus Crash. As Mark and Mae are walking out, I'm like, wait a minute. This blouse that Mae Young is wearing looks very familiar. I feel like we've covered this before. And they have the match. Mark is, of course, dominating Crash Holly. He's 5 times the size of Crash. And Mark is about to win the match. Mae rolls into the ring and she begs Mark, like, let me get a move in, runs the ropes, hits a splash on Crash Holly, and immediately grabs her midsection. And like she's in pain.
Boy.
And everything stops. Moolah runs down. All these agents run down. I guess at one point, the announcers say that she said that her water broke. And here we see you making your debut as the EMT. Yes. So I want to mention for newer listeners, we have early on in the run of Tales from the Attitude Era, we did a 1.5 hour special on Mae Young and her story arc during these months. Highly recommend going back to it. But for those of you who didn't watch the Mae Young special, can you explain how you became the EMT delivering this and how Vince decided that tonight was the night?
Well, a couple things is I flirted with a EMT character with some stuff at like a house show where it was like the EMT would go out and like if a wrestler was hurt and then be like, okay, gotta give him some help, and then the heel would kind of bump into me and be like, hey, watch it, take it easy, you're gonna hurt the guy, and the heel, oh, okay, whatever, and then boom, take out the EMT and do further damage to the injured wrestler. A good little gimmick you talked about. So that was in the air about the EMT thing, and like we said before, well documented, this storyline kept going. Mae Young pregnant. And it was kind of like, and it came out of me being like, what if she gets pregnant? And then just like, oh, it's got to happen. So, as things do, they grow. And people were like, this is like kind of the stupidest storyline. It's crazy. Well, it's there. Is it stupid in the, the list of the 100-year history of wrestling and stupid storylines? It's up there, sure. But Vince, for whatever reasons, like, as he is to be, mercurial, like, it's got to end. So I was like, really advocating like, oh, there's a million ways to end it. She's got to have a miscarriage. And I always thought like, I like turning like weird stuff into like real heat, and one could argue even back in the day, there's kind of preposterous storylines with the Undertaker was burying people, and when, his debut and this kind of nonsense. And then he became, a legitimate force that you kind of, when you talk about him and his legacy, you don't really, oh, yeah, I remember like what, there was a coffin match and all that stuff. Well, never mind about that. But, wanted to be like, this would really put a, fire under Mark Henry to be like, my God, she's had a miscarriage, he's out of control. Like what, nuclear heat, etc. And Vince, no, she's going to have a blockage. And we're just kind of like going like, he's hell bent on stopping this. And to this day, and I've talked about it before, Vince came back from the Magic Man. He went and found a rubber hand. He goes, and this is it. And you're going to deliver it. So, it's like, whoa, am I being punished for this? What is it? I'm a part of, in maybe in his mind or in some ways it made sense. Like the guy who came up with it has to be has to wear it now. So, and then another thing, Vince was just wanted the rib of, oh, we're going to put that goop on it. I want you to put that in Briscoe's face because Briscoe's got a gag reflex. I'm like, oh, really? Like, okay, which I kind of did, but, it was just like thrown together. And as usual, chaos, like, and when people are like, well, what are you doing? You're the EMT again. What's happening? And then, that was it. I don't have a much, better explanation. Go listen to the show. There's more details, but that's it in a nutshell. And it was over. And, some things are just like, nope, no more mention, no more miscarriage, no more heat from it. It's just like, its time is over. And that's it. And and frankly, sometimes with all kinds of storylines and things happening in pro wrestling, sometimes that's a better way to go. So I would have certainly enjoyed more nuclear heat about this, but that wasn't to be.
But it's arguably one of the most memorable moments of this era, good or bad.
Sure.
It does get remembered. So after the break, I'm going to just refer to you as the EMT.
Sure.
Mae is on the gurney, and the EMT says she's not going to make it to the hospital. We have to do it here. In the hollowed halls of the garden. Muhammad Ali, the New York Knicks, the Rangers, Mae Young's hand. We got a great match. Taz versus Chris Benoit. Bit of a dream match. I guess they wrestled in ECW a long time before, but this is a cool matchup for the moment. Immediate massive ECW chance, of course. We're New York, Philly, New York are the home bases of ECW. So you got to think there's a lot of crossover, especially with fans. Like, I feel like ECW fans, they're hardcore wrestling fans. So they follow WWF.
Sure.
They know all the storylines and they know all the ECW storylines. So they're super into this.
They follow everything.
I'm sad
even if they hate it.
Yeah.
Oh, did you see WCW last night? What the fuck? But you saw it, didn't you? Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Great action while we had it. The story is Taz keeps getting an advantage. The Radicals interrupt. So Taz hits an overhead suplex, gets the pin, has a visual pin, I should say. Eddie gets on the apron and distracts the ref. Ref pushes him down. Taz gets another suplex, gets another pin attempt. Eddie distracts again. Ref is ejected. Benoit mounts a comeback, does a few German suplexes. Taz reverses, locks in a Taz mission. At this point, Big Boss Man and Albert run down and attack Taz. Benoit helps neutralize Taz. And then Boss Man and Albert are like, thanks, buddy, but we got it from here. And Benoit's like, all right, I'm out of here. And then they beat up Taz a little more. Continuation from the night. If you think about it, Taz isn't really selling that the night before he got hit over the head with a nightstick. You're kind of underselling that moment here.
Well, he could be confused, but still able to fight.
WWE Medical is letting a concussed wrestler fight.
Yeah, it's 2000. This is just all that's
right, different era.
It's just happening.
Backstage, we're in the delivery room, and Mae says before we can move on, she needs a cigar. Pat gets her cigar, lights it up for her. Lots of yelling, really hard to make out what's going on.
Well, that's also because this is one of those things. When I said this idea was come up with like after the production meeting and everything, Vince is like, boom, and like, what? So I'm scrambling to put the EMT thing on and like, where are we going? You know what I mean? This is all, okay. Oh, it's going to be Pat and okay. And then we'll go down this aisle and you know what I mean? The match is coming up. So the intensity of it wasn't like, this wasn't done the night before. This wasn't done. It was just, one of those things that Vince likes. Like, I can't, it was like 1 p.m. or something, where he's like, it's ending.
That's
and you were
crazy.
doing, and like, so there's a lot of moving parts when something comes up at 1 p.m. and the show's going on at 7, believe it or not, with all the other shit going on. It's like, and you got to just like scramble. And then like, the director in the truck, oh, what are we doing? And where are we going? Okay. And he's got to tell the camera, it's not like it didn't come out of the production meeting. So it's a mad scramble. So That's my. I'm sticking to it.
Fair enough. So the EMT looks into Mae's private area and is confused. He pulls Mark to the side and says, "Are you sure she's pregnant?" Mark's like, yeah, sure. We cut to commercial. Come back. Still in the delivery room. EMT is in Mae's junk, and there's a fart sound effect. Then basically you're like, I'm going for it. EMT takes a big inhale and gets in. And there's a long delay. We hear a lot of squeaking, like rubber squeaking.
Yeah, that was Vince. I want to fart, and I want that gimmick, that big stretchy noise gimmick. And I know they were like, again, that's another thing. Like, oh, so the truck has to be like, oh, we'll go call the studio. We need some stretchy sound effects, and that's, you know what I mean. This is all. Like I said, this is at 3 p.m.
Yeah. Now, was this shot live, or did you pre-record this backstage?
I think it was pre-recorded, like segment before. I can't even actually remember, but obviously
during the show you were recording?
yeah. During the show, you're always doing that. In fact, when you're doing that stuff, sometimes you always have to like hold on, because you're doing it in between people's entrance music and crowd noise sometimes, and that'll fuck your take. So it's always like crazed. But I believe we did it right before the match. I can't be sure. It wasn't like live. Obviously you come off. I can't remember. It's good. I can't remember. Because I think going live, there, when you pull the gurney off and you have to go up the aisle and stuff, it wouldn't be just a direct. So it was kind of like cut to. So I think now, if I'm remembering correctly, it was done right before the match. And then, which was quickly like, you got to get the tape to the, because back then it was just more like too, like they still had, the camera guys had beta cams. And so they would like take it to the truck, and then like, hopefully that's fine. And then once you roll off, past gorilla position, then it just cuts to, people are watching on the Titantron, like, oh, it's picking up, which would happen a lot.
So the big conclusion is, after the squeaky sounds, it's a rubber hand with goop on it. Gerald Briscoe is puking, and the puke is like hanging. I saw at one point he like clotheslines his puke, so that like you can like push it off of him. And then the last line where you're like, all right, let's get out of here, is just Pat Patterson going, let's give her a big hand. All right.
Yeah.
So stupid.
Yeah. So odd. And then Vince was more concerned about, like, remember, get that hand up in Briscoe's face, because he's going to gag. That's all he gave a shit about. And I'm like, oh, fuck, I don't want fucking Briscoe to stretch me. Well, Vince, that would have been great. So I'm like, I don't, and just like, it was just, then it was over.
Yeah. And then that's it. So I don't know. At the time, I guess, like, I'm trying to think now, like at the time, I guess it's probably, this is like lame. I don't know.
Well,
But
it was the only thing that elevated it
journey.
past lame was, I think, at least it went into the area of like, what the fuck was that? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like lame is, this was like, what?
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. So, which I think is 1 degree better, or maybe a few degrees better. Who knows?
I mean, like I said, yeah, if it was lame, it would have never been talked about again. But it was memorably.
Dude,
lame.
I was in a restaurant once, a bar restaurant, and it was like a sports bar, and I was like sitting at the bar with this woman I know and some friends, and they had some screens on, and I could tell by the graphics, and it had wrestling. It was like some retrospective. This was years later, some retrospective show, and then I was like watching it, and then the graphic, it said like Raw's worst 10 moments, when Raw was doing things like that. Maybe it was another show, I don't know, but it was like, the NFL Network was coming out, and it was like lists were everywhere, and I just knew, like, oh, I'm gonna be, this is 3, 2, or 1. it's got to be up there or something. And then, so I was just like timing it with like these, and I was telling this woman, like, oh, I used to work for wrestling and stuff. And I was actually timing it. And I was like, in fact, if you look up here, you know, because I knew they were coming back. I kept like an eye out, like kept looking for the commercial. Here's number 4, number 3 or whatever. And I'm like, oh yeah, in here, check this out. And she's like weird. And then like pointed. And then like suddenly I was on as the EMT and just like what? Like, you know, like I timed it so well where I was like, in fact, look there. And it was like 4 TVs and like, what are you talking about? Like, you fucking weirdo. And then like, yeah, there I am. I'm like, what? And then it was really a wonderful, strange moment.
Love it. Love it. Did you get some that night?
Oh, that is not a clean finish, Rob.
Oh, not a clean finish. Oh, okay. That in those terms, that's what you want.
Oh,
you want a messy
just,
anyway, let's move on.
Please. oh my God. Oh, Pasbani.
We got the Dudleys celebrating their tag title win. Dudleys are getting over. There's signs in the crowd. People are into them, even as heels, against Road Dogg and X-Pac. I was interested to see what Road Dogg's spiel before the match would be without Billy Gunn, but he didn't even get a chance to do it. They got attacked before he finished his spiel, and it's a pretty quick back and forth match. Crowd doesn't really know who to root for because it's heel versus heel, but I guess they're almost rooting for it's hard to say. And X-Pac does a Bronco Buster. The moment he hits the Bronco Buster, pyro hits Kane. Kane's music hits, and he attacked everyone but X-Pac. X-Pac immediately ran off with Tori. He doesn't get to attack them, but he does attack Road Dogg and the Dudleys.
Why not?
Sure. Not like Kane needed his heat back, right? Did he? I forget who won the match. Was it him or X-Pac? I guess X-Pac won the match, right?
So yeah.
So I guess this was him.
Well, Kane is like that foolproof go-to, you know, utility guy where it's just like the entrance and him, his physicality, just the stature of him and those flames. It's like, yeah, just keep, you know what I mean? And also that he's a burnt weirdo. He can like, you know, you can just go over and over that he's like, oh, this lone weird creature. It's like Frankenstein. Like, yeah, it's Frankenstein 4 movies later. He's misunderstood. And he comes in and people run from him. Like, just keep, there's more moisture in that. Just keep wrenching it out.
There you go. Then Jim Ross cuts to a sincere recap of Mick Foley's career. Another great video, great way to you know, eat up a segment with great Foley clips. And I mean, if anyone deserves it, it's him. And really, like, at this point, I'm like, man, he's really gone. Like, this is great. Like, we talked about it with Sasso last week where he mentioned how he thought Foley was going to win. And I feel like I did too, because I just couldn't imagine him retiring.
But in the back of your head was like, he is, like I said, he walks like a truck with 4 different size wheels. He's, you know, it's legit. So you can see a lot of reasons why it's possible. So, yeah. So very, very fun. And from a writer's perspective, God, was it great to be like, I was always like that. Yeah, let's have him make a video package. And then Jim Ross will talk about it. Woo! Segment done. You know, and
it was great. And then we have the main event. It's Rock versus Triple H and Big Show in a handicap match. And Triple H and Big Show dominate virtually the majority of the match. This is like a 10-minute match. And the momentum is stopped when Show tries to go for a clothesline while all 3 men are in the ring. Aims for The Rock, obviously. The Rock ducks, and Big Show clotheslines Triple H. In wrestling, you cannot stop your momentum when you're running towards a clothesline. So it's impossible to do. And this is what changed the tide. And Rock clotheslines Big Show out of the ring, working on Triple H. Triple H is isolated all alone. Rock bottom on Triple H. People's elbow. Crowd is going crazy. 1, 2. Shane runs in, stops the count. It's a DQ finish. I didn't realize handicap matches can have a DQ finish, but I guess a triple threat match.
Well, when you got the owner's son running in there.
So this is what I was talking about earlier, where this is a bad non-clean. This is a cop out. non-clean finish, as
One
opposed to
could
the
argue
China
that,
one, which
but
is unacceptable.
I would say, to defend it, I would say that the introduction or the reintroduction of Shane being behind the Big Show, and also while you boo it and it sucks, what you're booing hopefully is the fact that, like, oh no, the powers that be and his family is interjecting for his guy. That's unfair. That sucks. He's giving him a raw deal. It wasn't just plain and simple schmaz for schmaz sake, or you know what I mean? It had a little bit of that in there, hopefully. And if it wasn't, it only hurts for a second. Fuck it.
No, I was going to say this is a non-clean finish, but like we said, it's the first week of the pay-per-view cycle, and this is leading to something. Like you're going to keep screwing Rock to want the fans to get him in the mat. Like, I don't think there's any fan watching that doesn't think Rock is going to make it to the main event. Like, he's going to make it. He's going to be.
And then also,
how could he?
It
not
helps
be?
a little bit, I think, because like the Big Show, you're like, you know, all three together, you might think like, well, Triple H always has. Stephanie has all this shenanigans and all this power of DX. The Rock is unbelievable. The Rock. So, you know, you kind of be like the Big Show. What does he have? Oh, now the Big Show has the owner's son. Oh, what kind of shenanigans are going to help him? You know what I mean? So that kind of evens him up a little bit, so to speak, potentially.
Yeah. No. So they all beat up the Rock. The crowd is chanting Mick Foley. Nobody comes out. The Rock is left laying as Raw goes off the air. So really big heel heat here. And again, plenty of time to make it happen. So excellent follow-up to the pay-per-view, planting the seeds for the biggest pay-per-view of the year. The build-up here is great for the pay-per-view. The pay-per-view didn't really deliver. Spoiler alert, WrestleMania. Sorry. But I really I don't know. I'm looking forward to watching it back with fresh eyes. But I remember being very, very hyped up for WrestleMania 2000 and the show ending feeling disappointed. Well, you know, probably because of the ending itself.
There was also an odd thing I remember overall and this happens, I think, sometimes in a lot of sports, was everything was so hot. Everything was working. You know, this like momentum was like, oh my God, Vince isn't even here. Shane isn't here. Undertaker, Austin's gone. Everything's working. It's just blowing up the ratings. And then, oh my God, we're heading towards WrestleMania. That's the big thing. And people started like getting injured. There was like sprained ankles. There was a lot of like just things that like you kind of felt like almost like, you know, like a team hitting its stride and like, 4 or 5 things. I'll try to remember more when I watch it specifically. But there was some kind of, I guess, almost like, it was everything peaking a little too early. You know what I mean? Almost like a team goes into the playoffs and they're peaking and then like, they just hit this like flat moment before the Super Bowl or whatever, you know, and like, they peaked. They were the best team all year. And they, you know, like it was almost like everything peaked a little. I remember more, but I remember a few things like that kind of happening and sort of like, it was a little flat response from the whole production, so to speak, a little bit.
Yeah, and the buildup was huge. Like you had that all-day thing where you recapped all previous 15 WrestleManias with Michael Cole and Ivory. So there was a lot of build, a lot of hype.
Yeah, and sometimes that happens. It's like, I don't think anything can live up to this. You know what I mean? You know, it's most like the momentum, the chase is greater than the catch, so to speak. And I agree with you there.
That's why you got to stick with us, folks. We got plenty to talk about in the next few weeks. Yep. Make sure you're following us. Follow the socials, people.
Yeah.
TFT Attitude Era.
See what's happening
on Instagram, on Twitter.
Is there going to be a division between Clean Finish Smart Marks? As we further examine that Clean Finish Smart Mark community.
How do our Western Heritage listeners
how do they feel? And I think, I'm not sure, but I'm hearing that a good percentage of Western Heritage listeners are also Clean Finish Smart Marks.
Oh, well, plenty to dissect in the coming weeks. We hope you join us on Tales from the Attitude Era.